Hello students, welcome back to another online lecture of the online lecture series initiated by Shet Vidya Mandir English High School and Junior College of Science and Commerce, Vasai. I am Mrs. Nehal Falkau. Students, today we are going to study a chapter from section 1 Prose of your English course book. The name of the chapter is Voyaging Towards Excellence, written by Achyut Godbole. Let us learn more about the writer. Achyut Godbole, who was born in Solapur, is a well-known writer known for his writings in Marathi and English. He is a prolific writer in various genres and has produced numerous original works as well as adaptations of works from other languages into Marathi. His writing style is informative yet very informal. He became a chemical engineer from IIT Mumbai in the year 1972 and headed top management positions in companies of great repute. He was a successful general manager of Patni Computer Systems. He headed many other reputed companies and later became a famous writer. Voyaging Towards Excellence is an autobiographical sketch penned by the writer Achyut Godbole, which depicts his journey from a middle-class schoolboy to a famous writer. The present write-up discusses his quest for excellence, how he developed a thirst for knowledge. He discusses at length the ingredients or the essentials of success and the ways to achieve it. Let us begin with the topic, Voyaging Towards Excellence. I had a very simple upbringing. We were a lower middle class family. Our 300 square feet house did not even have basic amenities such as a fan, a refrigerator, a geyser, a dining table or a gas stove, leave alone an air conditioner or a car. It was only when I entered the college that I got a watch and we got a dining table and a gas stove at home. Nevertheless, culturally, I had a rich childhood. Poets like Vinda Karandikar, Mangesh Padgaonkar and Vasant Bapat used to visit our home, and for hours I could listen to the discussions about poetry and literature, Marathi and English. They used to talk about Keshav Sut, Mardekar, Shakespeare, Charles Dickens and Thomas Hardy. I did not fully understand their discussions in depth, but I was immensely impressed. We also were lucky to have Pandit Kumar Gandharv, Pandit Bhimsen Joshi and Pandit Jasraj visit our place and talk about Indian music till late night or sometimes even dawn. This is how and why I developed my interest in literature and music during my school days. I did not and even today don't understand the grammar of music, but I began to love it tremendously since then. In the first paragraph of the chapter, the writer tells us that he was brought up by his family in a very simple manner. He belonged to a lower middle class family. His house was just 300 square feet. They did not have basic amenities of life such as a fan, a refrigerator, a geyser, a dining table, or a gas stove. Forget about having luxuries such as an air conditioner or a car. When the writer entered college, he got a watch and his family got a dining table and a gas stove at home. But despite all this, he had a very rich childhood culturally because many poets like Vinda Karandikar, Mangesh Padgaonkar and Vasant Bapat visited their home, and for hours together the writer could listen to the discussions about poetry and literature, both Marathi and English literature. They used to talk about famous poets like Keshav Sut, Mardekar, Shakespeare, Charles Dickens, and Thomas Hardy. The writer wasn't able to completely understand their discussions in depth, but he was immensely, means greatly impressed by them. The writer felt blessed and lucky because famous people like Pandit Kumar Gandharv, Pandit Bhimsen Joshi, and Pandit Jasraj visited his place and talked about Indian music till late night or sometimes even dawn, means very early in the morning. This is how and why the writer developed his interest in literature as well as music during his school days. Back then, he did not understand, and even today, he does not understand the grammar or the depth of music. But he began to love it tremendously, means to a very great extent, since his school days. Most of the times, the topics of discussion at our home were about music, literature, paintings, sculptures, etc. I could listen to the discussion about Van Gogh, Mozart, and Michelangelo, etc. It was because of such a milieu around me that I had a firm belief, which I hold, that all arts are equally, if not more, important in our lives than science or technology. I had learned from my childhood that money does not mean everything in life. It is necessary, but if at all there is something which enriches our lives and puts meaning to our existence, it is the arts, music, and literature. Here, the writer tells us that most of the times the topics of discussion at his home were about music, literature, paintings, sculptures, etc. He could listen to the discussions about Van Gogh, Mozart, and Michelangelo, etc. It is because of such a milieu, means setting a social environment around him, that he could have a firm belief that all arts are equally important in our lives, more than science and technology. Till date, he still holds faith in the belief from childhood itself. He had learned one thing, that money is not everything in life. Money is essential, it is necessary, but if at all there is something which enriches our lives and puts meaning to our existence, it is the arts, music, and literature. This is not to say that I did not like science or mathematics. In fact, I loved these subjects. However, I did not study them only for scoring maximum marks in the examinations. I used to study these subjects, or any subject for that matter, for its inherent beauty. I found Newton's law of motion beautiful and Pythagorean theorem elegant. I loved solving problems of physics and mathematics of the ninth standard when I was in the seventh, not to show off, but just because I used to get involved in solving them. I used to love problem solving and used to enjoy finding out the most elegant method of solving them. Obviously, these problems were not a part of the curriculum, but I enjoyed the whole process. This attitude of looking beyond marks or examinations and to seek joy in solving any challenging problem helped me to develop a problem solving attitude which came handy when I appeared for my IIT entrance JEE, because this exam is completely based on your problem solving ability and the ability to think not only logically but quickly and rapidly. The writer tells us that it was not like that he did not like the subjects science and mathematics. In fact, he really loved these subjects. However, he tells us that he did not study these subjects, that is science or mathematics, or for that matter any other subject, only for scoring maximum marks in the examination. He studied these subjects for its inherent, that is internal beauty. Inherent also means existing in something as permanent. According to the writer, Newton's law of motion was beautiful and the Pythagorean theorem was elegant. He enjoyed solving problems of physics and mathematics of the ninth standard, and he was only in the seventh standard then. He did this not to show off, but just because he used to get so much involved or engrossed in solving them. He used to love problem solving and used to enjoy finding out the most elegant method of solving the different problems. Obviously, all those problems were not a part of his syllabus and curriculum, but he enjoyed the whole process. This attitude of the writer of looking beyond marks and examinations and to really find joy and happiness in solving any challenging problem that came before him helped him to develop a problem solving attitude. Dear students, problem solving attitude is very essential in life. Come what may, all the problems come with a solution. The only thing is that we need to find out the most appropriate solution for any problem. This problem solving attitude of the writer came very handy when he appeared for his IIT entrance JEE, because this exam was completely based on one's problem solving ability and the ability to think not only logically but also quickly and rapidly. IIT is the Indian Institute of Technology. The writer studied at the IIT Mumbai. I scored 100% marks in mathematics in almost all the examinations that I appeared for from my first standard until IIT, barring only a few times. I stood 16th in the SSC board. At that time, this examination was for the whole of Maharashtra, including Nagpur, and I stood first in the university in all subjects put together. Those days, you could get an admission into IIT without entrance test JEE if you had secured the first rank in the university. Therefore, I did not have to appear for the entrance test to get the admission into IIT. But nobody in Solapur told me about it, for I doubt if anybody in Solapur even knew about this rule. Therefore, I appeared for the entrance examination and I secured a very good rank in the same. The writer tells us that he scored 100% marks in mathematics in almost all the examinations that he had appeared for from his first standard until he completed his IIT. Barring means except only for a few times where he did not stand first or get 100% marks, but he definitely got good marks. He stood 16th in the SSC board. At that time, this examination was conducted for the whole of Maharashtra, including Nagpur. The writer stood first in the university in all subjects put together. Those days, one could get an admission into IIT without the entrance test if one had secured first rank in the university. That means if you stood first in the university, you could skip the entrance test and directly get admission into the IIT. Thus, the writer had an easy chance to directly get entry into the IIT. But nobody in Solapur, which is his hometown, told him about it. Maybe because nobody in Solapur even knew about this rule. Therefore, the writer had to appear for the entrance examination and he secured a very good rank in the same. I was quite happy getting into IIT, but my joy was short-lived. At Solapur, I had not seen any building which was more than 3-storied. Mumbai, however, was full of skyscrapers. At IIT, most of the students and professors used to converse in English, whereas my English was very poor. I had an entire education in Marathi. My spoken English was quite pathetic. Not only did I have a very weak vocabulary, but my pronunciation also was terrible and my construction of English sentences very awkward, to say the least. Due to all this, I was feeling quite lonely and terrified in Mumbai in general and IIT in particular. I had developed an inferiority complex and wanted to run away from IIT and even Mumbai. The writer tells us that he was very happy when he got an entry into the IIT. But his joy or happiness was short-lived, means it did not last longer. At Solapur, all the buildings were not more than 3-storied. But when the writer came to Mumbai, he was surprised to see a city full of skyscrapers, means very tall buildings. At IIT, he found that most of the students and professors there spoke in English, whereas his speech in English was very poor. He had completed his entire education in Marathi language. The writer tells us that his spoken English was quite pathetic, that means not very good. He also had a very weak vocabulary and his pronunciation was also terrible. He wasn't able to construct sentences in English. That made him very awkward. And due to all this, he felt quite lonely and terrified or scared in the city of Mumbai in general and particularly in the IIT. He had developed an inferiority complex and he wanted to run away from the IIT and even Mumbai. An inferiority complex is a term used to describe the feeling some people have which make them feel that they are less in quality than other people, that they are not as good as others, or that they are worthless. One day I was sitting at my mess table in the hostel sipping tea when a senior guy came and sat on the chair adjacent to me. He was a convent educated guy with fairly sophisticated English, at least spoken or colloquial English. He was a bit arrogant and wanted to pull my leg. He tried to engage in some conversation with me and started pointing out errors in just about every sentence or everything that I said. After about 5 minutes, he walked away after insulting me. The writer tells us that one day he was sitting at his mess, that is canteen table in the hostel drinking some tea. Just then a senior student came and sat on the chair next to him. This guy was a convent educated guy, which means that he had a fairly sophisticated English, at least colloquial English. Colloquial means English which is used in ordinary or informal conversation. It is not a formal language. It is an everyday language that we use to talk to people around us. This senior guy was a bit arrogant or rude, and he wanted to pull the writer's leg. Means he wanted to tease or make fun of him. He tried to have a conversation with the writer, and as soon as they started talking, he started pointing out mistakes in just about every sentence or everything that the writer said. After about 5 minutes, he literally walked away after insulting the writer. I felt extremely humiliated and upset. As it is, I was feeling quite depressed and diffident, and this incident was the last straw. I was almost broken. I felt out of place there and literally wanted to run away to Solapur that very moment. However, it was only my self-esteem which stopped me. Suddenly, a feeling of determination and strength came over me and gripped me. Despite hailing from Solapur, if I could be a rank holder in the school, college and IIT with many awards in mathematics, there must be something right with me. Why should I give up? And that too for a silly and small thing like English. I was not to give up anymore, and I was determined to fight back. The writer tells us that he was extremely upset and humiliated, means insulted. As it is, he was already feeling quite depressed, and diffident means lacking confidence. And this particular incident with the senior guy was the last straw, means it was the last of the final incidents of or unpleasant occurrences that the writer had experienced. After this incident, he was almost broken and deeply hurt. He felt out of place there, means he felt he did not belong there or he was an outsider at the IIT. He literally wanted to run away back to his hometown, that is Solapur, that very moment. However, it was only his self-esteem, means his self-respect, which stopped him from going back to Solapur. Suddenly, a feeling of determination and strength came over him. He thought to himself that despite hailing, that is coming from Solapur, if he could be a rank holder in school, college and IIT, also he had so many awards in mathematics, there surely must be something right with him. He wondered why should he give up, and that too for a silly and small thing like English. So he decided he won't give up anymore, and he was determined to fight back confidently. As I climbed the stairs of my hostel room, my plan was ready in my mind. Normally, Most of us who are educated in vernacular languages such as Marathi think in Marathi before speaking in English, translate it in English, and then somehow try to speak out these translated English sentences in an extremely awkward fashion. I had decided that I would do nothing of this sort. I wanted to achieve excellence. This urge to excel in anything that you try to do has been with me since the childhood. Whether I would succeed in this or not, I always set my aims high. In this case too, I wanted to speak excellent, elegant, and fluent English. The writer tells us that a plan was already ready in his mind as he climbed the stairs of his hostel room. Normally, most people who are educated in vernacular means native or regional languages, for example Marathi, they think in Marathi first before speaking in English. Then they translate it in English and then somehow try to speak out these translated English sentences, which makes it really very awkward. The writer decided that he would not do anything like that because this was not the correct way and he wanted to achieve excellence. This urge or desire that he had to excel and be excellent in anything that you try to do has been with him since childhood. He always kept his aims or goals very high. Whether he would be able to achieve them or not, he believed that high aim is essential. In this case too, he was determined to speak English in an excellent, elegant, and fluent manner. Elegant means graceful or stylish in appearance or manner. The first thing I did was to start reading English newspapers and English novels. I studied etymology and phonetics and studied the roots of the words and how to pronounce them. I used to stand in front of the mirror and practice speaking, realizing my mistakes and correcting them myself all the time and improvising and improving day by day. It took about 9 to 10 months by which time I had started feeling quite confident about speaking in English at length with anybody. My fear had vanished and I started feeling at home in my hostel. In my future career, out of 32 years in information technology field, I was the chief executive or managing director or head of software company with thousands of software engineers worldwide. During that period, I had to give several presentations or negotiate my contracts with the CEOs, directors, or VPs in the US, UK, or Australia. I was absolutely at ease at that time. It is only due to the efforts at IIT that I could sign contract papers worth millions of dollars worldwide and also run large global software companies. To begin with, the writer began with reading English newspapers and English novels. He studied etymology and phonetics. In simple words, etymology means the study of the origin of words, and phonetics means the study and classification and pronunciation of speech sounds. The writer used to stand in front of the mirror and practice speaking in English. While speaking, he used to realize his mistakes and then he used to correct the mistakes all by himself, trying to improvise and improve himself day by day. In about 9 to 10 months, he started feeling quite confident speaking in English at length with anybody. His fear of English had finally vanished or disappeared, and he started feeling at home in his hostel. In his future career, out of 32 years in information technology field, he was appointed to the position of the chief executive or managing director or head of software company with thousands of software engineers worldwide. During that period, he had to give several presentations or negotiate many contracts with the CEOs, directors, or VPs in different countries such as US, UK, or Australia. But at that time, the writer was absolutely at ease while speaking in English. He was quite confident and free of panic. The writer gives all the credit to the efforts that he had made at IIT. It was because of those efforts and hard work that he could now sign contracts which were worth millions of dollars worldwide, and he was also able to run large global software companies. At IIT, I got fairly good marks in my first 2 years. However, a very important thing happened while I was in my third year. I came in contact with about 15 to 20 extremely brilliant students, researchers, professors from IIT, TIFR, and BARC. They included top ranking students from IIT, visiting professors in American universities, and very renowned mathematicians in the world, and so on. I was instantaneously attracted to this group. This friendship had a lasting impact on my life. Until that time, I used to consider myself somewhat intelligent. However, after I met my friends in our group, I came to know what real brilliance meant, and I realized where I stood. I was actually also very lucky that I came in contact with great people on the global scale early in my life. Later in my life, when Mr. Narayan Murthy left Patni to start Infosys, I started heading Patni's software division, occupying the same chair. The writer tells us that at IIT he got fairly good marks in his first 2 years. However, something very important happened when he was in his third year at the IIT. In the third year, he came in contact with about 15 to 20 people who were extremely brilliant, and these people were students, researchers, and professors from IIT, TIFR, that is the Tata Institute of Fundamental Research, and BARC, that is Baba Atomic Research Center, which is in Trombay, Mumbai. These people were top ranking students from IIT, visiting professors in American universities, and very renowned or famous mathematicians in the world, and so on. The writer was instantaneously, means very quickly, attracted to this group of people. This friendship had a lasting impact or influence on the writer's life. Until that time, he used to think of himself as somewhat intelligent. However, after he became friends with that group of intelligent people, he understood what real intelligence or brilliance is. He also realized where he stood in his life. The writer feels extremely lucky to have come in contact with great people on the global scale quite early in his life. Later in my life, when Mr. Narayan Murthy left Patni to start Infosys, I started heading Patni's software division, occupying the same chair. My head office was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, USA, very near Boston. It was in fact the adjacent building to MIT in America. I had to visit the US every few months in those days. I used to visit MIT during lunchtime to meet my friends. There, one could see a couple of Nobel laureates at the dining table. If you walked for an hour from there, you could reach Harvard Square near Harvard University. I used to visit both of these universities and could talk to a number of Nobel laureates. The writer tells us about the later stage of his life when he was working. He mentions the name of Mr. Narayan Murthy, who left his position as a general manager at the Patni Computer Systems to start Infosys. This is when the writer started heading Patni's Computer Systems Software Division, occupying the same position of a general manager. This was a great responsibility for him. His head office was in Cambridge, Massachusetts, USA, which is very near to Boston. In fact, it was in the adjacent building to MIT. MIT is the Massachusetts Institute of Technology in America. In those days, the writer had to visit the US very frequently. He used to visit MIT during the lunch break to meet his friends. There, one could spot a couple of Nobel laureates at the dining table. Nobel laureates means people who were awarded the Nobel Prize. If one walked for about half an hour from there, one could reach Harvard Square near Harvard University. He used to visit both of these universities where he got a chance to talk to a number of Nobel laureates. During these years, I traveled a lot to US, Europe, Japan and Australia and could meet a number of great thinkers and management gurus such as Alvin Toffler, Peter Drucker, C.K. Prahlad, Tom Peters, or great technologists such as Vincent Cerf, who designed TCP IP, which is the most basic protocol of internet. All these discussions with these greats broadened my horizon and my aims and the worldview became global. It taught me humility and made me realize that I had to achieve a lot in life. The lesson in humility and hard work as well as passion for excellence was going to play a very important and vital role in my life. During these years, the writer had to travel to many countries which included US, Europe, Japan and Australia. There, he got a chance to meet a number of great thinkers and management gurus like Alvin Toffler, Peter Drucker, C.K. Prahlad, Tom Peters, etc. He also got a chance to meet great technologists such as Vincent Cerf, who designed the TCP IP, which is the most basic protocol of internet. All these discussions with these great people resulted in the broadening of his horizon. His aims and worldview became global. Such encounters taught him humility, that is, to be humble, and made him realize that he yet had a lot to achieve in his life. The lesson in humility and hard work, as well as passion for excellence, was going to play a very important and vital role in his life. Coming back to my groups in IIT, my friends were not only more intelligent than me, but they were very well read. They had interest in all the subjects like science, technology, sociology, psychology, economics, philosophy, anthropology, archaeology, political science, etc. Our group was interested in all of these branches apart from all the fine arts such as music, literature, painting, etc. In short, our group was interested in almost anything under the sun and which concerned human life and existence. I was immediately attracted to the group and developed immense and deep interest in all these branches of knowledge. None of these subjects were part of our curriculum at IIT. But again, I never studied for scoring marks in my examination. Here was a sea of knowledge in front of me, which I thought was necessary to pass the examination of life, which was far more important than just passing IIT examination. It is very difficult to become a master or an expert in all these subjects, but it was very important for me to understand at least the basic principle of most of these subjects. Any of us could easily top the GRE examination and migrate to the US. However, that thought never even touched our minds. To understand the world and how it works and serving India and her people was far more important to us. The writer takes us back to his days at the IIT. His new group of friends that he had made at the IIT were more intelligent than him. They were also very well read. Well read means they had a lot of knowledge from reading widely. They had an interest in all the subjects like science, technology, sociology, psychology, economics, etc. etc. Their group was basically interested in all these branches, and they were also interested in fine arts such as music, literature, painting. In short, their group was interested in almost anything under the sun, means anything and everything, and all that was concerned with human life and existence. The writer was immediately attracted to this new group of friends, and he developed immense and deep interest in all these branches of knowledge. None of these subjects were a part of their syllabus or curriculum at the IIT. But as the writer has told us earlier, he never studied for just scoring marks or passing any examination. Now, at the IIT, before him, there was a sea of knowledge which he thought was necessary to not just pass the examination at IIT, but it was necessary to pass the examination of life. It is really difficult to become a master or an expert of all the subjects, but for him it was important that he should understand at least the basic principles of most of these subjects. Any of his friends at the IIT were intelligent and they could easily top the GRE examination and migrate to the US, which is done by most of the students. GRE is the Graduate Records Examination. The GRE General Test is one of the world's largest assessment programs for graduate admissions, and the exam is conducted by Educational Testing Service. Over 500,000 individuals from over 160 countries take this test. The GRE scores of the candidates are accepted at thousands of graduate programs around the world for master's and doctorate degrees. However, the writer and his group of friends never even thought about this idea, that is, to pass the GRE examination and to migrate to the US. What was far more important to them was to understand the world and how it worked, and to serve their nation and its citizens. Therefore, I plunged into all these branches of knowledge. It was a period of renaissance for me. We used to discuss about relativity, Big Bang, aesthetics, literature, philosophy, economics, and many other subjects every day until late into the nights. My cupboard was full of books on a variety of topics. It is only because of the human curiosity that we have been able to make such a great progress in science and technology and social sciences. I have a number of limitations, but one thing I am proud of is the curiosity, humility, and humanity. I learned these values during my IIT days. I also became a firm believer in rationalism and equality for all the castes, creeds, races, genders, and religions. I started treating nature as God and humanity as religion. The writer tells us that he plunged means he entered deeply into all these branches of knowledge. It was like a period of renaissance for him. Renaissance means a rebirth or revival of learning. They had discussions on many topics like relativity, Big Bang, aesthetics, literature, philosophy, and many other subjects. They used to discuss about these subjects till late in the night. He had a cupboard full of books on different topics. According to the writer, it is human curiosity and inquisitiveness that has led to great progress in science, technology, and social sciences. The writer tells us that he may have a number of limitations, but there is one thing that makes him proud, and that is his curiosity, humility, and humanity. Humanity means concern for our fellow human beings. All these values were learned by him at the IIT. He started firmly believing in rationalism. Rationalism means the practice of basing opinions and actions on reason and knowledge rather than on religious beliefs or emotional responses. He also became a firm believer in the equality for all, no matter what caste, creed, race, gender, religion one belonged to. He started treating nature as God and humanity as religion. I passed from IIT, joined a non-violent social movement for tribals in Sarvodaya, participated in a peaceful satyagraha, went to jail for 10 days, came back to Mumbai, was jobless for a while, worked for rupees 125 per month to supervise workers at the night shift in a mechanical workshop, changed 13 houses in Mumbai, and finally settled on information technology as my career. I spent 32 years in information technology, out of which I was a chief executive officer or MD or the software head for 23 years for a large global multinational software companies with thousands of software professionals worldwide and 6 offices in the US, 3 in Europe, 1 in Japan and 1 in Australia. I had to travel all over the globe around 150 times for business. During this period, I had also written 4 books with 500 to 700 pages each on information technology published by Tata McGraw-Hill and then translated into Chinese for global distribution. The writer tells us that he successfully passed from the IIT. Thereafter, he joined a non-violent social movement for the tribal community with Sarvodaya. He also participated in a peaceful satyagraha and was imprisoned for 10 days. He returned to Mumbai. He was without a job for some time. He worked for rupees 125 per month in a mechanical workshop where he supervised workers during their night shift. He changed total 13 houses in Mumbai and finally settled on information technology as his career. He spent 32 years in his career in information technology. Out of these 32 years, he was a chief executive officer or managing director or the software head for 23 years for large global multinational software companies with thousands of software professionals worldwide. He also had 6 offices in the US, 3 in Europe, 1 in Japan and 1 in Australia. He had to travel all over the globe around 150 times for business. During that period, he also wrote 4 books which were about 500 to 700 pages each on the topic of information technology. These books were published by Tata McGraw-Hill and then they were translated into Chinese for global distribution. I learned a lot of things when I was running these large companies. The first one was the importance of teamwork. In today's world, nothing is possible without teamwork. You cannot be successful if you are a loner and an egoistic person. Secondly, you need to lead from the front by setting a good example in front of your staff. Third was that you need to treat your subordinates and your colleagues as friends. In my career, I made a few mistakes but learned a lot about motivation, being a good listener, target setting, and the art of delegation, which forms such an important part of today's management. After working for all these software companies for so many years, I wanted to return to my first love, that is, to read and write on various subjects concerning human life and existence. Therefore, I gave up two offers of around 3 crore rupees per annum to become a writer. This is how my second innings as a writer in Marathi began. The writer tells us that he learned a lot of things when he was running all these large companies. The first thing he learned was the importance of teamwork. According to him, in today's world, nothing is possible without teamwork. One cannot become successful if one is a loner who likes to stay alone or work alone, and if one is an egoistic person who is full of ego and pride. Secondly, one needs to set a good example in front of his staff. Practice what you preach is something which is very, very important. Only when you set a good example, people will follow you and believe and do what you say. Third was that one needs to treat the subordinates and colleagues as friends. That means if you are in a position to express power over others, you should not fail to treat others as your friends and not someone whom you can dominate. The writer tells us that in his career, he has made a few mistakes, but throughout his career, he has learned a lot about motivation, how to be a good listener, how to set a target, and how to delegate work. And all this forms an important part of today's management. After having worked for all these software companies for so many years, the writer wished to return to his first love, which was to read and write on various topics relating to human life and existence. And for this love, he declined two offers around of around 3 crore rupees per annum to become a writer. This is how the second innings of his life as a writer in Marathi began. After this, I have written about 34 books in Marathi. Most of them have become bestsellers with tens of thousands of copies sold for each. However, it is not the sales or the money that is important to me as much as the fact that these books have brought about very good changes in the lives of thousands of readers. After reading my autobiography, Musafir, and a book on psychology, Manat, hundreds have come out of depression and more than a dozen have given up thoughts of committing suicide and decided to start all afresh. There are hundreds who tell me that they understood the theory of relativity or Big Bang after reading my book on science, Kimyagar. My book, Boardroom or Management, on Management has created at least 20 successful entrepreneurs. Then, there are hundreds who tell me that now they can understand Economic Times or NDTV Profit after reading my books on economics, Arthat. Many have turned to mathematics after reading my books on mathematics, Ganiti. The same is true about my books on Indian music, Nadved, English literature, Zapurza, painting, Canvas, Western films, Limelight, and Western music, Symphony, or books such as Genius series, Rakta or Vitamins, or Anartha. It is these reactions of thousands of readers and the feeling that I am touching the hearts of thousands, if not lakhs, of my readers that keeps me going. The writer tells us after this he wrote 34 books in Marathi, with most of them becoming bestsellers with tens of thousands of copies sold of each book. The writer tells us the fact that these books were able to bring about very good changes in the lives of thousands of readers. And this is what matters to him more than the money he made from these books. He tells us that his autobiographical book named Musafir and a book on psychology named Manat have helped hundreds of people come out of their depression. After reading these books, many people who were thinking of committing suicide due to whatever reasons gave up those suicidal thoughts and decided to lead their lives in a new and fresh manner. There are hundreds of people who tell him that they understood the theory of relativity or Big Bang only after reading his book on science, Kimyagar. His book on boardroom, on management, has influenced many and has led to the birth of at least 20 successful entrepreneurs. Also, there are hundreds who tell him that after reading his books on economics named Arthat, they are able to understand economic times or NDTV profit. Many have read his book on mathematics named Ganiti and have begun to love it and thus have turned to mathematics. The same is true about his books on Indian music named Nadved, his book on English literature called Zapuza, his book on painting called Canvas, his book on Western films named Limelight, and on Western music named Symphony, or books such as Genius series, Rakta, or Vitamins, or Anartha. All of these books have been able to make a great impact on people. The writer tells what keeps him going are the reactions and responses that he receives from thousands of his readers and the feeling that he has been touching the hearts of thousands of them. Why am I telling you my story? When I look back, there are a number of lessons and values that I cherish and keep learning about even today. Some of these are thirst for knowledge, curiosity, humility, humanity, rationality, equality, teamwork, quest for excellence, never say die, thinking big. In this last paragraph, the writer asks us that why is he telling us his story? When he looks back at his past, there are a number of lessons and values he has learned, which he cherishes or treasures even today. Some of these are thirst for knowledge. That means one should always be thirsty for knowledge and always be a learner. One should be curious. Curiosity is very important. Also, one should be humble. That is, one should possess the quality of humility. Humanity, that is, having concern for his or her own fellow beings. Rationality, that means to think rationally without any bias. Equality means the belief that all are equal. Teamwork, that means coming together and working as a team. Quest for excellence, that means always striving hard to excel or do better and best in whatever you do. Never say die, that means never giving up and always thinking big. So what message do we get from this lesson? We learn that one should never give up. One should never say die and always overcome all the obstacles in life with determination and perseverance. Also, one should have the quest for excellence, that is, always trying to make himself or herself better in whatever we are doing. Also, one should always be humble and possess the quality of humility. And lastly, one should always be a lifelong learner and have the thirst for knowledge. That's all from today's video. Thank you.